Alright, so we've completed our XRD run, and now we're going to do the basic analysis so that you have data on your own computer. So, like we saw before, this is the software that runs the X-ray diffractometer. And so it's already saved the data, so we're done with it, but I'm going to leave it open, and we're going to come up here to what's called Traces version 6. And so I'm going to go double click it. Alright, so a blank window opens, and so we want to either go up to File, Open, or hit the little folder, and we find where our scan was. So most of these are labeled under scans. If we saved it to a specific folder, we could go there. I'm going to find an old sample just for these purposes. So let's say I want to look at this one. So I've selected one. You'll notice the CPI file. This is what comes out of the software. It's a proprietary file that can be opened by traces. So I'm going to open it, and then our scan will show up here. So right now we just have all these data points. And so what we want to do is we want to find where all these peaks are. And so you can see the peaks here, right? And so what we want to do is we want to try to identify those peaks, the location, and more information about them. So what we can do is go to Peak, up here in the top left, and hit Search, or Control P. And so what you might have noticed is that these little diamond shapes appear. And so there are searching parameters that you can change back up here to be more or less sensitive and pick up the various peaks. So you'll notice this little peak down here got picked up, this one, this one, this one, this one. So if we want to add a peak, I can click, there, I can click, and you'll see that that one popped up. If you, I added another one. So if you double click, and I'm getting lost here. So you'll notice I've added a lot. So if you want to subtract a peak, you can also, you have to click right on top of it. So it can be kind of challenging. So what you can do is, I'm going to start over again. I'm going to go actually here to the peak list, and I'm going to select them all just to start over. All right. Then I'm going to go back to peak search, and I'm going to find those. And then let's say I want to add this peak right here. Again, I can just click it, and you have to get right on top of it to be able to remove it. And so that's pretty challenging. I think this is a good example of that. So another way that you can delete them is if we go to the list, and then you'll notice here on the list, these are around 10. So you'll notice that all these peaks are around 11. You can just delete them that way. So that's a lot cleaner of a way to delete these peaks. All right. So there's a couple ways to do it. This one is the more efficient way if you're having trouble deselecting peaks. You'll notice that if I go through all these big peaks that I see seem to have peaks. You might even notice that some of them have 2. If we zoom in, and I'm just doing that with the plus icon up here, you'll see that there is actually 2 peaks on a lot of these. So if I scroll around, you can see a lot of 2 peaks. And so it's actually identifying. So that's good. So we'll come back to that. But there is 2 down here that I don't see identified. So what I'll do is I'll scroll over to them. I'll make them a little bigger so you can see them. And then I'll do the same thing. I'll click them to identify or to select a peak there. So I have those 2 identified. And again, if you need to delete them, you can go back up to the list. You can try to select it, but they're very hard, as you saw before. And so let's say I'm satisfied with the peaks that I have. All right. So I've got all these peaks that you can see here. And so what I'm going to do at that point is go back to that list. right? So this is my list of peaks, and they're labeled 1 through 11. They give you the 2 theta value. They give you the intensity, the D spacing, but you have to be cautious with this because the computer has a different value set up for the wavelength. So I would not use those. But it also ranks the intensities with the largest as 100. So that's also very useful. So what I'm going to do is hit copy. And it asks if I want to clear the contents. Yes. And then I can hit OK here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to file, save as, and then I'm going to save, and I'm going to change the file format as a CSV. So this allows us to use it in any kind of graphing program that we have, such as Excel. So I'll go to select CSV. I'm going to put it in a different folder so I can go find it easier. And it's going to save this. And now I'll go to this is a shortcut to scans. And if I find the folder that I saved it in, MSE408, there we go. And then you'll see up here, this is the one that I saved. So I'm going to open that. It's going to open it in Excel. So all this has is 2 columns, 2 theta, and intensity, the raw counts. So what I can do is over here on the side, I can paste, and I'm pasting those peak values. So chances are when you get the data, this is how you're going to see it. You're going to see what you can plot, X and Y, the 2 theta versus intensity. And then over here, you're going to get some peak information from what we fit in the program, because Excel isn't as good at fitting those. So that's how we get that basic information. One last thing that can be useful is the full width half max, so how wide a peak is. So if I want to get that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to a given peak. So let's say I want to look at this one, and then I'm going to go to peak full width half max. I'm going to click on that, and it tells me to calculate the peak. I need to use my left mouse button to zoom around the peak. So if I do that, so if I make a box around the peak, then go back up to peak full width half max, so FWHM, it has calculated the full width half max for me. So the full width max is 0.2520. And there's no good way to export that. So if I want to record that, what I'm going to do is take that value, come back over to my CSV, and just make a new column for full width half max. And I'm going to write it. This was the 47 peak, so that was 0.2520. It's all right there. So you might also see the full width half max, and we have to do that individually for each peak. And so that's how we're doing it in these cases. So chances are that's how the data is going to be given to you, the information that comes to you in this CSV file.